You're sitting next to me?
Yeah, am I?
No, not at all. There or here?
Right here.
You have to be by the mic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello everyone, it's me, Mitch Murphy, the Redpill rapper on ThoughtGrinds.ca. Welcome back to another episode of the Redpill Rapper Show. Man, does it ever feel good to be here? I've got my good friend Beatrice, but before I tell you all about her, I gotta tell you about the Resistance, man. It's right here, you see that? You've seen us around, we're going freaking around the whole country, man. We're making a ton of noise. If you want to be cool like us, just email theresistance144@protonmail.com and ask, have you heard of the Red Pill Rapper? And you will, in fact, receive 10% off anything and everything that you're buying. Who are you? And why are you in my studio?
Okay, I'm Beatrice. I'm originally from Romania. Came to Canada 24 years ago. Lived in communism for 22 years and went through a revolution. Waited another 9 years to see if anything changes. Nothing changed, so I decided to move to Canada to live a free life and to offer my son a free life. And it's not free anymore.
That's sure true. That's sure true. It's feeling like it.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, I'm just making sure that we are live.
Okay.
Because I don't see us on the YouTube here. What the heck, man? Oh yeah, we're live. Look at that. Sorry about that. Romania?
Romania.
Did you say Romania?
Yeah.
How? Okay. What happened? Was it a communist takeover? Did they get Donald
Yes.
Trump in office?
So Romania used to be a monarchy up until 1943. And in 1943, the communist regime took over. They forced the king to abdicate. And they started implementing slowly, boiling the frog, communism. So the first thing that they did, to give you an idea, like related to what's happening here right now, the first thing that they did was closing the churches.
Weird.
Right? Sounds familiar, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And then the second thing they did, guess what?
What's that? Guns.
Took over the small businesses.
Oh, they didn't want people owning their own stuff?
No, they closed all the businesses and they took over.
Okay.
And then after that, they took over the land and the property of people.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're aware of it, it's Bill C-51 right now that it's about to be tabled. And apparently they're giving the land back to the natives so they can take it back from them. So what happened in Romania at that time, after they closed the churches and they closed all the small businesses, when they started they took the land, they took over the land, they took over all the properties. Like my grandparents on my mom's side, they were farmers and they were very wealthy. So they took everything from them and they nationalized it.
Okay.
And after that, they started destroying neighborhoods in big cities, including churches, like big, nice churches that we had for hundreds and hundreds of years. And they built this huge apartment buildings, and they moved all the people from the farms. They moved them into the city. They called it the industrialized era.
Okay.
Yeah. And then they started with a lot of restrictions. You want to have a car? I remember my parents, I wasn't born at that time, when my dad applied to get a car, he had to have signatures and approval from the Communist Party to get a car. And it was a waiting list anywhere between 2 and 7 years. So my parents got their first car when I was 7 years old.
Wow.
7 years old.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I just have a question to backtrack a little bit.
Yeah.
When you say they would destroy cities, they would destroy churches, would that be police officers or who would do the destruction?
The communists.
Okay.
The communists.
Members of the party or hired... Do you remember that?
Members of the party, yeah. And they forced
okay.
everybody to become a communist, to belong to the Communist Party. It was one party, it was one leader, and I'm saying leader this way because he was actually a dictator. The rule there, as it is now, it was then too, that the president can run only for 2 terms, 5 years each. After the first term, the dictator passed a law that he will be elected for life.
Okay, that's convenient, hey?
Right?
Very convenient.
So careful, because we might have Trudeau for life. So we have to be careful about what's going on, what they're trying to do to us now, and we have to resist, because that's what happened there. We did not resist, and then before we knew it, we ended up in communism, and it was 47 years of communism. 47 years. It was, at one point, the stores were empty. Grocery stores, there was nothing in the grocery stores. So I remember grandparents getting their folded chairs and going in line outside in the cold, summer or winter, it didn't matter. They will sit on their chair at 6 p.m. in the afternoon and wait until 7 o'clock in the morning, the next morning, to get 1 liter of milk for their grandkids. Because if you weren't there in line in time, there were limited quantities.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's insane. And it's like the similarities are, you can't deny them.
No, you
can't
can deny them. And it's interesting because when I came to Canada, people often ask me, where are you from? And I said, oh, I'm from Romania. And they're like, oh, communist country. How does it feel to live in democracy? And I said, you really think it's democracy here? And they're like, what do you mean? I said, this is socialism. And they did not like that. So I did see it 24 years ago. I saw what was coming.
Very interesting. Well, yeah, it's the boiling frog, right? They just
pretty much
into it.
Yeah.
But how old were you when you left Romania?
I was 30 when I left Romania.
Okay, so you kind of did your whole childhood there and everything like that.
I lived for 22 years in communism.
Wow.
22 years. And when I was 22, the communists collapsed. And we had a revolution. Every other communist country, they had revolutions, but they were very soft. Especially the Polish Revolution, they called it the Velvet Revolution because it was very soft. For us, it was brutal.
Right.
It was very bloody. So what happened? How it started there, to give you an idea, was a pastor. He was talking against the regime, and the secret communist police came to their door. To his door, and they said, if you don't stop talking against the regime, we're gonna arrest you. So then 10 to 12 people from his church, they went and they camped in front of his house to protect him so he won't be arrested, because he said, I'm not gonna stop. And they came and they arrested him anyway, because there was just 10 to 12 people, and those 10 to 12 people started marching to the nearest big city, and within a number of hours there were tens of thousands of people on the streets, and that's when it started there. We heard nothing on the news, of course, because we only had one channel, and it was all dedicated to communism and the great dictator or president, how he called himself, and one radio station. We had to listen to a radio station from Western Europe. It was called Free Europe. And that's how we found out about the revolution. And then at that time, I was in university. I was in my second year of university. I was 22 years old. So it started on December 16th, and on December 18th, it was our last day of school before we went for Christmas break, and we were coming back January 7th. The dictator got so paranoid about what was going on, and he passed a law, not an order, a law, that they're not allowed to have more than 2 people congregating on the streets.
Okay.
So
for their safety, right?
For their safety, of course, yeah. And we left school that day on December 18th when they passed that law, and there were 6 of us, and we were standing on the corner of the street just saying our goodbyes when this police van pulled over. And they came to us, 2 police officers, young police officers. They came to us and they said, we need to see your ID. And I talked. I was the first one who spoke, and I said, I don't have an ID. I did, but I didn't want to show it to them. And I said, I don't have any ID. So they asked every other person, and everybody was looking at me as they were saying, I don't have my ID on me. And they knew we were lying. And they said, okay, well, we'll ask you one more time. We need to see your ID. And we're like, we don't have it. They're like, well, we're going to take you to the station if you don't want to show the ID. And I said, okay, go ahead. So they loaded us in the van.
Oh, no.
And we went to the police station, and we stayed there for 24 hours. Now, what happened at that time in Romania, being communist for so long, when you were speaking against the regime, or you were not accepting any of the rules, they will come and take you in the middle of the night. It didn't matter. Take you from home, and you never came back. So we didn't know what was going to happen to us. we were lucky because the next day, December 19th, the whole country started revolting. And they came, they opened the door after 24 hours and they said, you're free to go. We have a bigger fish to fry.
Wow.
So that's why I'm here now and I'm able to speak. Probably I would have been dead.
Right.
If that didn't happen.
Thank God, man. Thank God.
Yeah. So then I went home and my dad on the 19th, he came home from work. We were living in the south of the country and the revolution started on the west side of the country and the majority of his family was in that city where it started. And he came home and I saw my dad for the first time crying like a baby. And I asked him what's going on and he said, well, they came to us, the secret police, communist police, they came to us today and they said tomorrow morning we're meeting you at the train station. You're going to be given arms and you're going to go to that city on the west side of the country and you're going to start shooting at the domestic terrorists.
Oh no.
Which were the protesters. See, they
right.
You know, like they label us now too.
Yep.
And he said, I can't go there. What if I kill my family? I can't go there. And I said, then don't go. He's like, well, I'm afraid what's going to happen to me. I'm like, it doesn't matter. Just don't go. So he didn't go the next day. And that's when it actually started everywhere in the country, like big time. Now, on December 20th, we had... in Romania, like in Europe, everywhere in Europe, it's this tradition where you write Christmas cards and you go and put them in the mailboxes for everybody. You don't go to the post office.
Okay.
So it was that tradition between me and my mom to go and deliver these cards. So we're walking downtown and all of a sudden I hear vroom, whoosh, whoosh. Like, what is that? So I'm looking around, bullets.
Whoa.
They were shooting at us, snipers from top of the buildings, shooting at innocent people on the street. So we dodged the bullets. We didn't realize how intense it was and how bad it was. So we finished what we had to do and we went back home. And then we found out that what happened was the dictator has taken under his wing these orphans.
Okay.
And he fed them and he schooled them and he trained them to be snipers just in case. So those were young kids, anywhere between 18 and 22 years old, like my age, and they were shooting on order. So they had no choice. He decided on December 22nd to hold a big meeting in the capital of the city, and he just threw a bone at everybody there. So people were forced to leave work and go and gather in the piazza and supposedly support him, but they were forced.
Right.
So when he tried to throw a bone at them, like giving them like $5 increase, they got mad and they stormed the building. So him and his wife, the dictator and his wife, they were scared and they fled in a helicopter from the top of the building. Now what happened with them? So then the revolutionaries, the protesters, stormed the parliament building and then they went straight to the TV station. And live on TV they went there and they said, we are here, we're free, there's no more communism. So everybody could see it.
Badass.
Right?
Cool.
So everybody was happy. I remember that day like it happened yesterday because my dad came home early from work and we started jumping and crying and laughing at the same time, jumped in the car and everybody was on the streets and we were honking and we were screaming freedom, freedom. It was such an amazing feeling. Then what happened to the dictator? They got dropped off from the helicopter in a field. The helicopter pilot said, I don't want to take you. They wanted to flee the country.
Right.
And he's like,
Fair enough.
I'm leaving you here. So he dropped them off there, the two of them, and they went to hitchhike.
Whoa.
So this guy stopped with the car and pretended he didn't know who they were. And they're like, oh, can you take us to the border? And he's like, yeah, sure thing. So they got in the car and he drove them right in the middle of an army camp and dropped them off and said to the soldiers, they're yours.
Yeah.
And he drove away. Right?
Wow.
So then the resistance, right? They came and they had an impromptu tribunal for them. They tried them on the spot. and they decided that they have to be executed because the shootings were not stopping in the whole country. So they executed them. They had everything recorded on a video at that point, and they played it on national TV on Christmas Day.
Whoa!
On Christmas
Merry
Day, we
Christmas!
were glued to the screen, and we're like, they're dead? They're really, really dead? We're free? Like, we couldn't believe our eyes. And right after the video ended on TV, the shooting stopped.
Wow.
Nothing happened anymore. Now, and this is something that I want to tell people. We have to be careful because we're going to win this. There's no doubt. Good always wins. God is on our side. We know that, right? But what happened is that the whole country has been communist for 47 years. So they didn't know any better. They didn't know anything else. So the new people that came to power, of course, they were also communists. So what they were proclaiming and they were advocating for was what they called, it still bothers me up to this day, communism with a human face.
What?
And we're like, fuck you.
Yeah.
Can I swear?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Fuck yeah.
Okay. I'm like, no, this is not gonna happen. So the new president had 5 years, and then again after the first term for the second term, he tried to make it an extra term, so he will have 3 terms and then to be elected for life. We knew what was coming, and we did not accept that. So then he called them minors, and they came and they started attacking people and killing people on the streets, protecting the president.
Whoa.
And one more time we took it to the streets, and that was like, I would say 6 or 7 years after the revolution. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And he was not successful to get a third term, so he got 2 of them. And then we had a number of other people trying, and it's been now 31 years, and they're still trying to find their way.
Right.
They still don't know where they belong, what to do with their so-called freedom. And now this is happening.
Right.
And it's interesting because after we lived in communism for 47 years, people are still so brainwashed and they don't see the signs. Like, I have 3 of my best friends from university back in Romania, and when I started posting on Facebook about what's happening here and pointing to what's really going on, they private messaged me and they said, how can you do that? How can you do that? Don't you see that this is not communism? And I'm like, seriously?
Whoa.
Have you forgotten that we were dodging bullets on the streets? Oh, and by the way, with the dodging of the bullets, when I returned to school on January 7th, half of my class was not there anymore. They were dead on the streets. They killed half of my class. Young people in their 20s. So anyways, these 3 friends of mine, they blocked me on Facebook.
Is that right?
Yeah, they
Sorry,
don't want to have
Beatrice.
anything. Well, I'm not, you know what? It is what it is.
What
if
are
you
you
can
gonna do,
see
right?
it, you can see it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, yeah. So we're fighting for you guys, for the next generation.
Yeah, for
because
sure.
you deserve to have a good life.
Well, the scariest part to me, for sure, is the psychology of it. Because it's like you say, these people have stayed in their house for a year.
Yeah.
And they've sanitized, they've ruined their health, and they've isolated from their family members, and they're used to this now. It is their new normal.
Yes.
And so for us to try to go back to freedom, it's like jarring for a lot of people, and it's scary.
Yeah.
But I keep going back to in history, and from what you're saying, like the 12 people outside of this guy's house, it's like everybody called us crazy in the beginning because it was like 12, 15 of us, you know, in Kelowna anyway. And but it's those there's always like a certain number of people around that get it. They know that they're correct, you know. And then now I guess it's just our job to get everybody that gets it, convince them to get a little bit louder.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
but then once we achieve freedom once again, what do we do with all these people that all they want to do is stay home and get a UBI check?
Yeah.
What do we do with them? Do we re-educate them? Should we send them to re-education?
That would be ideal, but to be honest with you, the way I see it for now, at least for the next few years, is that we're probably going to be segregated. There's going to be a group of us and a group of them. And they're going to want to live in fear and do whatever they're being told. and it's going to be us who want to move forward.
Right.
So we'll see. At that point, they will probably come on our side. But I know in the beginning, when this started last year, I was talking with many people because they got so frustrated, the people that are awake, and they were like, oh, I'm so frustrated, I can't wake people up. And I asked them, I said, if you had a person in a coma, would you go and shake them and be like, wake up? And even if you did, do you think you'll be successful?
Right.
That person will wake up if they're meant to wake up, or they will not. But we can't. And I said, how about we focus on the people that are on the fence, on what I call the sleeping lions. Let's wake up the sleeping lions, the ones that are on the fence.
100%.
And the rest will follow when we become a majority.
Yep.
They will have no choice but follow.
Yeah, 100%. Because that's all they do.
Yeah,
they follow.
They follow.
Yeah.
They're followers, right? So we have to focus on the right people to bring them. And I was mentioning earlier today, before we were on the air, that I was listening to this podcast on YouTube, and there were the leaders of the protest in Romania. They were being interviewed, and they were talking about the big numbers of people that they have there, and all the people that are protesting there. And they were asked by the host, what percentages of people do we have there? And they said, we have 20% of people that are awake and see what's happening. At the other end of the spectrum, we have 20% of people that are fully unawake, aware, and then we have 60% in the middle. And he said, we're trying to wake up as many people as we can from the middle,
right?
So we tilt the balance in our favor.
Yeah.
Now, Dr. What's her name? Dr. Cahill was on that podcast as well, and she interrupted them and she said, actually, you only need like 2 or 3% of the people that are on the fence to come on our side. That's all we need, and that's a revolution.
Right.
Yeah.
Bro, I think she's correct.
Yeah, I think so too. And to be honest with you, I don't think we're going to end this, or we're not going to see an end to it without having a revolution. You know?
Time will tell, right? I mean, I know which side of history I'm on, and I know you do too.
Yeah.
But something I'm really trying to get a grip on, though, is that how did they get people to back that communism, that communist dictatorship? How did they get the people to be behind it? Because now it's all around, it's for your safety, right? And the mainstream media has successfully radicalized the majority of the population to be okay with things like putting pastors in jail for preaching and fencing up churches and locking up peaceful protesters and fining people for doing normal everyday things. As far as I can tell, they have been completely radicalized. How did they do it in Romania?
Same tactics.
Is that right?
Same tactics, yeah. Fear, a lot of fear put in them. If you don't obey, this is what's going to happen to you. This is a universal basic income. Everybody gets the same money, from a janitor to a doctor.
Right.
What happened, that was a very destructive decision. And I hope is not going to get there here. We're not going to get there, because that actually enabled the doctors, for example, to take them as an example, because my mom is a doctor too.
Okay.
So I grew up with that and I saw it. What happened was that these doctors, because they didn't make enough money, and they weren't used to that, not to make enough money, they started not accepting bribes, but they started asking for bribes.
Okay.
So let's say you come into my office and I'm a doctor, and you have a problem like it's life or death. You need to have a surgery.
Right.
And I come to you and I say, this is my fee. Well, I can't pay you that. I don't care. Walk away from you, because you're not giving it to me. And it's up to this day, after 30 years, there's still bribery. There's still bribery. And I remember, I can tell a funny story, because as I said, I lived in communism. Fortunately, my mom was not taking bribes. She decided, no, we're going to live a clean life, whatever it is, whatever we can afford, we can afford. They had special stores for the privileged Communist Party members, where they had all the food, and abundance of food and drinks and everything. We did not have access to that, because my parents did not obey the rules as they were expecting. But we will receive from other people that had access to those stores. So anyways, back then. So I was living with my parents, and bribery was, as I said, was flourishing. So I was used to that. You go to, even though my mom was a doctor, we would go to see a doctor. You had to pay the price.
Okay.
So then I'm 30 years old and I moved to Canada, and my son is about, I would say, a year old when I had to go to the doctor with him. He had a strep throat. And what I learned from my mom, you give him antibiotics for the strep. That's what I grew up with. So I go to the doctor's office and I'm across from him. And I said, I need some antibiotic for my son. And he's like, oh, what's going on? Strep throat. He's like, we don't give antibiotics that easy. Take him home and give him some ice cream. I'm like, ice cream? No, I want an antibiotic. And he's like, sorry, I'm not going to prescribe an antibiotic. So I got up like this, close to him, and I said, how much? And he said, how much what? I'm like, how much? How much do you want so you can give me the antibiotic? He looked at me and he's like, get out of my office now. So that's how brainwashed I was and indoctrinated. I'm like, everything has a price. Wow. I'm ready to pay the price. Just give me what I want. I could not understand it. I was so confused. Why is he kicking me out of the office? I asked a pertinent question. How much do you want?
Bribing a Canadian doctor.
Yeah.
Get out of my shop, eh?
Yeah. So that's what communism does to you. That's what it does to you. Also, another thing that we had during that time, and I didn't mention it, was traveling. We were not allowed to travel anywhere. So the first time when I traveled, I was 22 years old in July. The revolution happened in December, so a few months prior to that. My mom's best friend came to her and she said, I'm sending my daughter to Eastern Germany for 2 weeks, but I don't want her to go alone. Can you let your daughter go? And my mom is like, sure, but I don't have any connections with the Communist Party to get an approval, because you have to get an approval to fly.
Right, of course.
To leave the country, right?
Got to be a health official
right?
or something.
And she's like, I don't have that connection. And my mom's friend said, well, I do. If I get the papers, will you let her go? And she's like, yeah, absolutely. So she got the papers, and I went for 2 weeks to East Germany. Now, I go there, and we were walking down the streets one afternoon, and there were all these mannequins in the window, and they're sitting, and they're laying down, and they were so real, because we had mannequins like dolls. You could tell that they're mannequins just standing up. These ones, they looked so real. You're gonna laugh. I spent 20 minutes staring through the window at a closed store, staring at the mannequins, waiting for them to blink.
Really?
I'm like, these are real people. That's how it looked to me. And they didn't blink.
Sir.
Right? And then all of a sudden I hear this noise. So I turned and I looked around, and they have these big machines on the street with foamy detergent washing the streets.
Okay.
And I'm just looking. I'm like, what is going on here? I went back home. For a month, I did not leave my house. And that's when I decided I will leave this country. So the reason why we were not allowed to leave the country, it was because they were afraid that we're going to see what freedom looks like and what it's like to live in a free country. And they were afraid that we were going to revolt. That's why we were not allowed.
Because if you get a taste of it, you won't let it go.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what happened to me. I'm like, nope, I don't want to be here anymore. During those times in communism, salespeople in stores, they were seen in high regard, because you had to go and bribe them to get some product. Otherwise, you'll not get it. So there were actors, there were doctors, there were engineers, there were lawyers. All of them, they had connections where they paid, and they will get products that you won't see in the store. They will have them in the bag. They will never show them to you. So it was unbelievable what was happening. You didn't have the connections. You didn't have anything.
That is so dark, and it's just connections through that Communist Party, hey? That's like the big one?
Yeah.
I feel like I still don't understand how they get people to back it, because would the idea be like? Because you're saying that there would be threats, right?
Yes.
Kind of oddly similar to how if you leave the country, you can leave, but you got to stay in our crappy hotel for 2 months and pay $2,000 and do these things.
Yeah.
But back then, would it have been a direct threat of like our government is gonna put a burlap sack over your head and kidnap you? Or was the direct threat, oh, it's so bad out there, don't go there? Like,
that's the second one.
Really?
Yeah.
Like, oh, those capitalists are so scary?
It's
is that
so
the idea?
bad. Capitalism is on the brink of collapse. It's bad. It's only communism is the best thing that happened to humanity. Everybody has to embrace it. And no, it's bad there. You don't want to live like them. But at the same time, no, you don't want to live like them. But no, don't go out to see how they live. Because it might give you some ideas and then you might start revolting. Mm-hmm. So...
Yeah,
we had no clue. We were so disconnected. I remember my husband. We were the same age, a few months apart, and my ex-husband. He's Canadian, and we would listen to music, for example, in the car, and he'll be like, "Oh, remember that song from when we were in our 20s?" I'm like, "No." He's like, "What do you mean no?" I'm like, "I have no idea what you're talking about."
Right.
Like, how can you not remember? I'm like, we didn't have access to music outside the country. We didn't know anything. So all I knew was ABBA. That's all I knew. ABBA and of course Beatles, but they were a little bit older, not my generation. But that's all I knew from outside the country. Nothing else. Nothing else. We had no connection. We had no connection to the outside world in terms of literature, reading any stuff, listening to music, watching movies, nothing. We had 2 hours per day TV from 3 hours, from 7 to 10 p.m. And from 7:20 to 7:30, there was a cartoon for children, and it was all about the dictator. What a great president he was, and how wonderful communism is.
Right.
That was all. And then you had the news, and in the news it was always they were always talking about, oh, we have record production of this and that and that, and it's such a wonderful thing, and the country is flourishing while we were starving. So what they were projecting on TV, it was a completely different story from what we were living. And that's what I'm talking about now. What you see on TV, it's a complete lie from what we're actually living. It's the exact same thing. So I think what they did, they took their time to perfect their plan with communism, and now they're coming full force to implement it everywhere in the world.
Yeah, it sure looks like it. And it's a war on our minds first and foremost, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, and it's with false promises that, it's going to be great, and you're going to have a universal basic income, and nobody's going to be worried about anything. But let us take your land, let us take your property away, because you don't need it. You don't need it. You don't need that stress. We're not going to charge you more than you could afford. But you have to obey. You have to follow the rules.
Well, that's a big problem with these ideologies, is that they require everybody to be on the same page, do the same, look the same, act the same, think the same. Yeah. And it's ironic that they call themselves liberals out here, because the freedom movement, we are the live and let live people. Yeah. You and I, I'm sure we have ideological differences, and lots of people in the movement. We've all got differences, but we all believe that we should have those differences, and that we should talk about them and not get erased. That's why I just refuse to report people on my social media, you know what I mean? Even if they're harassing me or being rude or whatever. I can't bring myself to do it, because I do just believe everybody should be able to say what they want all the time. Yeah. Without that, we're going to fall apart, because I've seen it too. I've seen it, especially with angry young men. If they get removed, they go into these echo chambers with people that agree with them, and they just get ugly. They just become these ugly, monstrous people. And but again, that's everybody kind of recognizes that with the right wing extremists and stuff like that. Yeah. But they don't see it when it's the mainstream media and the bulk of society that is all getting behind this mentality that we need to do the same thing and act the same thing and think the same way, and that we need to remove everybody else. But they're just in the biggest echo chamber ever, and that's why my channel's already getting hit. Everybody that has a different opinion, they all get scrubbed off the internet. And it's in your day, they used to put a burlap sack over your head and kill you. Yeah. And we're not there yet, but it's the same it's the same goal, right?
And the same, pretty much similar tactics.
Of course.
But they're more advanced now, more refined, because they had time over decades to refine everything.
Yeah.
So they don't get the people scared and revolt. And they're watching us closely.
Oh, yeah.
They're watching us, and they realize that the moment we start taking control and gaining power, that's when they come with more things and put them on us. The way I see it is like, and as we talked about the boiling the frog slowly, right? So they take away this much, and then they watch us.
Yep.
To see our reaction. And if they feel that we're dangerous, they give us this much back.
Right.
But right after they give us this much back, they go and take away this much.
Right.
And then they give us a little bit back, and then away. They take again.
Oh, yeah.
And before you know it, everything is gone.
Oh, and it's ugly, and the media, they're dirty, filthy lapdogs. What they'll do is they'll say, how would the public feel about checkpoints at the border? And then they don't do that, but they'll do something that's not quite so bad, and it's the exact same process that you're talking about. It's sick. It's so sick. They'll just put out these feelers, see if people freak out.
Yeah.
And I'm freaked out.
Are you?
Yeah, I am.
I'm
At the
not.
same time, not, right? Because I'm pretty comfortable on this side of history, and just keep trucking along because I'm not going to stop. Are you going to stop?
No. Well, remember we had a conversation a few days ago when we were talking about the rumors that we're going to be in full lockdown, and I think it's coming. It didn't come yesterday. It didn't happen yesterday, but I know it's coming. And you were like, oh, so you're not coming? I'm like, yeah, I am. I'm ready to collect tickets now, man.
Right.
I'm just going to put them on a string and put them around my neck and walk with pride.
Yeah, I'm a little jealous of my friends in Ontario, like allegedly Suzanne. They got all these cool tickets, waving them around. I haven't got one, man.
Yeah.
They only gave them to David Lindsay. So.
Yeah, well, I know when we went a few weeks ago when we went to the Kootenays with Vlad and Marcella and a few other people, they waited for us until the end, and as we got in our cars, they came to our car, and the guy that was in the front next to Marcella, they asked him to roll the window down, and he was just a participant. He was helping us.
Right.
He didn't speak. So I was speaking, Marcella was speaking, Vlad was speaking. We were all there on stage. We could have been targeted, but no, they wanted this guy.
Right.
And they're like, can we see some ID? And he didn't want to show the ID. He's like, I don't know, what did I do wrong? And Marcella just leans over and she's like, I'll take the ticket. Give me the ticket. Please give me the ticket. She was begging them to give the ticket. And they're like, nope, we're not giving you the ticket. I'm like, darn. And then they went to Vlad. And there were three of them. Vlad was in the back. They all rolled the windows down and they looked inside and said, you. So they went straight to him. We were with the cameras there. And they ticketed Vlad. And there were two police officers, and one of them was next to me as I was recording, and he didn't have a mask, but he had one of those neck warmers.
Oh yeah.
And I looked at him and I said, well, why are you guys doing this? Because this is a protest. But no, they wrote down that it was an event because they can ticket you with an event, but not with a protest. But it was a protest.
Okay.
And I'm like, why are you guys doing this? You do know that this is not lawful. You do know that you're breaking the law. And the guy pulled his neck warmer down, leaned into me, and he said, this is your chance to go to court and fight even stronger so you can win this fight.
Whoa.
Pulled it back up and walked away from me.
Wow.
I'm like, okay, you're kind of on our side.
Right.
Right? We're taking the pulse here.
Sure.
But we were so disappointed at the end that just Vlad and this other guy got the ticket. We're like, what about us? We want a ticket. We want to brag about it.
Yeah, of course.
Because it doesn't hold in court. We know that. We know that.
No.
And we're not afraid, honestly.
Yeah.
We're not. We had a chant in Romania during the revolution. Of course, it rhymed, but translated in English, it doesn't rhyme. And we were chanting, freedom, we love you. We either win or we die.
Badass.
Yeah. And when people ask me, they're like, are you afraid? I'm like, no. When they ask me now, are you afraid? No, I'm not afraid. I dodged bullets on the streets. And I said, they can take everything away from me, but they cannot take my soul. They
Absolutely.
don't have control over my soul. My soul belongs to God. And he'll take it when he wants me to go there.
Absolutely.
And if I don't have that fear, then I can move forward and fight.
God bless you,
I don't
Beatrice.
have the fear.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Because I remember in the early days, I wasn't sure, but I kind of assumed like it probably is a deadly virus, but obviously they're going to use it as a globalist takeover. Like that was my headspace, and I remember going to going to my first rally and just thinking like, this is crazy. What am I doing? But it kept ringing in my head. Liberty or death. That's right? What I thought everybody believed that.
Yeah.
And so if I died of that virus, who cares? And then I listened to David Lindsay and I listened to these people and I go, oh, maybe it's not so bad. And now the things that they called conspiracy theory, like the 99.97 survival rate, these things, they just like trickled it out slowly. But these people knew all about it at the beginning.
Yeah.
And they've also given an incredibly accurate description of how this year would go, down to these checkpoints that just came out today. In Ontario.
Oh yeah.
And so it's just, I've been pretty proud of myself, and I hope you are too, because
I am.
It's we've all had to be brave, and it's through us but being brave that other people feel more comfortable.
Yeah, we're empowering them by seeing us that we're not afraid. Right. They see that and they're like, oh, maybe I can do it too. I have them on my side now, and I know that I have other people that are fighting side by side with me.
Absolutely.
Right.
And we got your back, man. We got your back, all these people.
And we're here for them with open arms when they want to come and join. And we're going to be there and supporting them. Because it's about humanity. And I find it interesting that, I can't even say her name, Bonnie Henry. Okay. I find it interesting that Bonnie Henry started that, and again, typical communist propaganda, be kind. Well, what happened in the last year? People have become more unkind than ever.
Yeah, at a level I've never seen before.
Right? It just proves that what they say and what's happening, they're two completely different realities. But they keep going at it. Be kind, be calm. And I use another one. Enjoy the outdoors from indoors.
Right.
Right?
Well, that's that common theme of the upside down.
Yes.
I'm wondering, because from my reading, it seems like that upside down mentality is a very communist idea. Was that really prevalent back then? Like freedom, like slavery is freedom, war is peace.
Yes.
These ideas, right?
Yes. Yeah. Those were the slogans that we heard all the time, and brainwashing us with repeating them. You start believing them. You stop questioning and being in fear, hearing that, oh, that person was taken and we don't know what happened to them. And that person was removed in the middle of the night and they never came back. That just stuns you, and it makes you like, I don't want to do anything because I don't want to lose my life. I don't want to leave my kids without me. Or it's just the exact same brainwashing tactic. And when the thing started, you said that in the beginning you believed it was a virus. I didn't.
No, you never did.
But I did freak out. I remember it was the first time, because I haven't watched news TV in 9 years, almost 10 years now. And that was the first time when I'm like, okay, I'm gonna jump on TV and I'm gonna listen to Trudeau. I got so mad because he was asked questions and he will go round and round, and I started screaming at the TV. I'm like, answer the damn question!
Right.
And he will not answer. And that's when I started freaking out. I went into panic mode for like a week. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's here. Communism is here. This is not a virus. This is a takeover.
Right.
And then I'm like, okay, what's going to happen? Like, if I panic and I'm scared, how am I going to help? So I have to mobilize myself and be like, no, we're going to push through, and I'm going to talk with as many people as I can about my experience, and maybe some of them will wake up, and that is going to be like a snowball effect where they're going to wake up other people.
Right.
And slowly it's happening. When Pastor James Coates got arrested, I was like, okay, this is our revolution. Because I was drawing on my previous experience. I'm like, okay, people will just jump. But no, we don't have enough strength to, and enough, what's the word that I'm looking for?
Resilience?
Yeah, not necessarily, but we don't, enough courage. We don't have enough courage to stand up and be like, no. Part of it is lack of courage, and part of it, the biggest part of it is like, people don't believe that that's going to happen here. Because why Canada has been pampered. No wars, Nothing bad happened to them. In the past, the government was on their side and helping people. That's why you hear the older generation, like the seniors, talking about, oh, I trust the government. There is God, and then there's the government.
Ugh.
Well, the government that helped you 40, 50 years ago is not the same government that is trying to actually enslave you now. So wake up. This is a different story. You cannot live in the past thinking or relating to the past and be like, oh, this is not gonna happen to Canada. It's happening. It's
right.
here. It's here. We were in Penticton a few weeks ago with Vlad and Marcela when we kicked off the Blue Poster training. And Vlad was talking by the water, and he said, "Oh, I'm coming from a communist country. I lived in the former Soviet Union, and that was communism, and this is what happened." So, anyways, when he finished talking, there were lots of people walking by, and some with masks, and they stopped because they heard us. And one of the guys stopped him, and he said, "How old are you?" So he was very aggressive verbally. "How old are you?" Confrontational. And
Talking to Vlad.
yeah, and Vlad said, "I'm 40. It's like, you were a child when it was communist. You know nothing. What are you talking about?
Whoa.
You have no idea." So I overheard that, and I went right there and I said, "Okay, he must have been a child, but I'm 53. I said, "I lived, and I was 22 years old when the revolution started. So I lived in communism most of the first part of my life." And he said, "So you're telling me that communism is coming to Canada?" And I said, "No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is communism is already here."
Yeah.
And he's like, "That's bullshit. I don't believe a thing you're saying." And I said, "Okay, let me get this straight. So I lived in communism. I experienced communism. I know what I'm talking about. I see the signs. You had no experience, and you are arguing with me that what I'm saying is wrong and what you're saying is right. Am I correct?" And he's like, "Yeah, that's exactly it." And I said, "Okay, I only have one thing to say to you. I really, really hope that I am wrong and you are right." He turned around and walked away. He couldn't take that. Yeah.
Yeah, and his anger is a very good indicator that he's just an NPC, a non-player character that's running a program.
Yeah.
During that whole interaction.
Yeah.
That's been the recurring thing, is that these people that are our opposition, they have about 5 things that they'll say.
Yes.
And it's the same 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They'll pick one and they'll say it, and they're always very emotional.
Yeah.
Very emotional, angry.
And angry, like the negative emotion.
Yes.
And the reason why they are so angry, well, part of it is mind control, and they don't realize it, of course. But second of all is because they have no argument.
Right.
They're just regurgitating what the propaganda and the media is telling them.
Right.
And then when you present them, when you try to have a clear conversation with them, not an argument, a conversation, they don't know what to say.
Yep.
Because they were just regurgitating. They were not thinking. They were not using critical thinking.
Right.
And that's the hardest part, to work with people, to shift their minds and try to see it for what it is. So that's why I think we just have to go and address the people that are kind of on the fence, and they're kind of like indecisive, and it's like, could this be true? Actually, it's been a year already and nothing's changed. Like, if we complied, we wear the masks, we social distanced, we stayed inside, we closed restaurants, we closed churches, how come the cases are still going up?
Right.
And why do we need a vaccine, but fine, I'll take the vaccine, let's say, if you're saying that to me, but you're still telling me that I have to wear a mask, I have to social distance after that, I can go see my family, I can travel, and I still have all these restrictions. What's the point? And why is this happening? That's when the critical thinking starts kicking in. For some people, not for all of them, but for some people. So I saw in the recent weeks or months, the last 2 months, that people are starting to shift a little bit. And they're like, well, it might be something to it. I'm still afraid to find out more, but this is not right. This does not look or sound right.
Something's wrong.
Yeah, something's wrong.
I see a sign, like, and I've seen it in Vancouver and all over the place. Sometimes people will write, does this make sense? And that is a very good question.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't make sense unless the world is run by satanic pedophiles.
Which it is. Let's face it.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Sure.
But did we just call them that?
Yeah, whoops.
Right?
Sorry.
But that's what's happening right now. It's a shift. And when I did my first speech, I had my first speech on October 18th at the Art Gallery in Vancouver. And what I was saying there, and I'm saying it, I'm repeating it now because that's the reality. It's like we are as a planet, we are on a big chessboard, and they're making a planned move, and we're following with another move, and they're making another, and we're making another move, and they're watching us. And when they see an increase in numbers with us, they're gonna start panicking, and that's when they're gonna start making the wrong move.
Right.
And that's when we have to be prepared to be like, checkmate.
100%.
That's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for them to panic enough because they're strength in numbers with us and make a wrong move. And then we're just gonna be like, yes, now we can do it.
100%.
Yeah.
Now I think you got to get out of here pretty quick.
Yeah.
But I wanted to ask, for people that maybe aren't willing to go to protests for whatever reason, what can people do that are starting to wake up and they want to push back? What do you recommend people do?
Well, first of all, protests are good in a way, but I think we're a little bit past that phase of protest. I was talking with Sarah the other day, and I said, I really see it that we have to take the resistance underground. Because we're too exposed. We're exposing ourselves there on social media, and they're watching us, they're seeing the moves that we're making, and then they know how to counteract to them. So what I recommend to these people is get in touch with us, who we've been at it for over a year. Talk to us, rally together, and the most important thing at this point is, yes, we can do protests because they're good in a way. People get to see us with the signs out there and dancing and smiling and hugging and being happy and realize these people are not dead. They're not dying. They're not sick. So what's going on again? And involved or engage that common sense, that critical thinking. But also, so that's a good thing. But also, I think we need to start taking action in any way that we can. Civilize disobedience. That's one thing. And as Chris Sky says, just say no. So we need to push back, and the only way to push back for us is to be like, no, I'm not doing this. No, not anymore. Enough is enough.
Just be brave, right?
Be brave. Don't be afraid again, because you know what? It's only God up there that can take our life. Nobody else. So people have forgotten how to live because they're so afraid of dying. And it's like, there's nothing there, an invisible virus. You're afraid of an invisible virus? Well, don't you know that you can walk down the street and something can fall on your head and you're dead if your time has come?
Right.
So don't be afraid. Believe that God is there and He's on our side.
Well put, Beatrice.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for coming in. What do you want to promote? What do you got? A website links or anything like that?
No, it's just I'm involved with Hugs Over Masks, and so I'm the interior leader for Hugs Over Masks. I'm the interior leader for We Are All Essential, which is actually a Canada-wide network for small businesses, encouraging them to open up or to stay open. And we have a website, www.weareallessential.ca, and people can go there and register either as a volunteer or as a business owner, and they can choose to be private as business owners, or they can choose to be public, so people know that they're out there. And we have affiliations with other organizations. We don't have lawyers on site, but we have affiliation with other organizations and with lawyers. And once you register, you can go to our Telegram, and we have twice a week we gather there, and you join the Telegram and you gather with other business owners, and they will be talking, and they will do exchanges, and we feel empowered. We know that we're not alone. And also I'm involved, I'm just about to go now in a few minutes to do the Blue Poster training. And that
some people are watching live, so maybe tell them.
Yeah, so the Blue Poster the Blue Poster is the Blue Poster from the BC Human Rights Commissioner. And they issued the Human Rights Commissioner poster because they got so many complaints from businesses where they were not allowed to walk in, even though they were mask exempt. They were not allowed to walk in because they got so many
complaints. Sorry.
That's okay. They were not allowed to go in because of the mandatory mask. The ministerial order M012, it's actually talking about mandatory masks, but also is talking about mask exemptions, that they have to be recognized and they have to be respected, not to create any harassment and not to create any conflicts between customers or business owners or managers and the public.
Right.
So people need to, in all fairness, if you have a mandatory mask sign on the door, you need to have the BC Human Rights Commissioner a blue poster that says masks are accepted, and you do not have the right to ask people to prove their medical exemption. You have to take them at their word. And that's the work that I'm doing right now. So going to Penticton, a week and a half ago, I was in Kelowna doing the training. Next Saturday, I'm going to be in Kamloops. So we're doing it everywhere. We're providing the documents. I have printed them. I have them in envelopes so people can take them. I'm providing the training. We're talking about it, and we're looking at creating small groups of 2 people that go there as volunteering for the BC Human Rights Commissioner, talking with businesses. And I found a shift, and I'm going to end with this. We realized that a shift has happened with businesses in the last 2 weeks, where they're so fed up with it, they don't even ask, they don't even want to be bothered. And also customers, they don't complain anymore. You do have the Karens here and there, but that's inevitable with every society, not only with what's happening right now. But the majority of them, they're fed up, they can't wear it anymore. They say they go home, they have headaches, migraines, oxygen depleted brains, they can't function properly, they get sick from them. So they want a change, but they don't have the courage, and they don't have the information. So we're not lecturing, we're educating people so they can stand in their power, knowing their rights.
Yeah, and I hear from a lot of different people, but you guys are, as far as I can tell, the most effective at making it just some actual, tangible change.
Thank you.
I'm really grateful for you guys.
I want to give thanks to Yvonne in Vancouver because she started the movement. Oh, she's the best too. And her with Vlad, they started the movement. And you know what? All we can do is just grow the groups here in the interior, so we are aligned with what they're doing in Vancouver, and hopefully more people will get empowered through the training.
I think so.
So yeah.
Thanks so much, Beatrice.
Thank you.
Thanks you people for listening. We love you guys. Be brave, live free, take your vitamin D, and hug your family, all right?